recording, sorry. Okay, let's start with the code overview if you don't have any more questions. So the project, when you get a new project, where do you look first? Package.json. What's happening? Can you hear me all right? All right, package.json. Somebody has a speaker on, Anton. Package.json is your friend, is your number one friend. So you open up the package.json and you see what will be installed in this application. So when you get a code, you don't have node modules folder. It doesn't make sense to give you megabytes of code, which you can install anyway. These are all dependencies. So let's take a look. So what do we see in this code? We see something that is called scripts. It's an optional section, but NPM supports something called script, and we will be using it on many occasions, especially at the end when we will be building the we will be automating builds, and we'll be building production builds, development builds, and so on. Now, what do we have here? NPM scripts allow you to specify commands that you would be otherwise typing on the terminal. So instead of typing live server manually in the terminal, I am saying I want to run a command called npm start, and it'll run, in this case, live server for me. In this case, it's no big deal in terms of typing. I could have typed live server, and it's pretty short word, but imagine that you need to start a server with a whole bunch of different options, or you need to start a tool again with a long line. Instead of typing this many characters, you just say npm start. What is a start? You define here. Next, we say that we want to use npm engines greater than the version 2.14. The thing is that npm has an old version, it has a new version. If you'll go to your terminal, you can always type npm. I think it's minus version. No. Yes, two minus. I have the version 3, and you should have the version 3. The version 2 point something was older and not as efficient. It was loading more modules that need to be, but so the point is, it has to be versions 3 or later. Next, we have a section dependencies. Dependency section is what we need to run the code. Where? Anywhere. In production, in development. So these are the dependencies of our project. As you can see, this section has not only the Angular stuff, but something else. What is this something else? Take a look at these two. These two are external libraries that we use in the auction. We decided to use Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a Twitter's library with nice CSS, which works in a responsive way and so on. Nice control. But when Twitter created Bootstrap, they built it on top of jQuery. It was their choice. So if you want to use Bootstrap, we need to have both Bootstrap and jQuery installed. That's why we added it to the dependency section. If we wouldn't use CSS, well, these two lines would be gone. The section dev dependency is for something that must be installed on my computer as a developer. These tools are not needed in production. We will not be deploying them on the production server or QA, but we need them to run on my machine. So what do I need? I need live server to start the application, and I need the Typescript Compiler version 1.75, or this second minor release can be higher, like 8, for example. That's the thing. So when you get a new project, you run npm install, and it'll create for you this subfolder node modules, which there's a lot of stuff in there, mainly Angular stuff. But if you will scroll down, somewhere down the road you will find jQuery, for example, because we had it as a dependency, right? Somewhere you should see a bootstrap as well. This is a Twitter's library bootstrap, and this is their distribution underneath. So you can see it's their fonts that work nicely, CSS files that supports media queries, that supports different sizes of the user's device, different width, I mean. So that part should be clear. All right, so now we are there, so run npm install and it'll install. Next, the other tool that we use Typescript Compiler, of course. Who are we? Of course, there is a way to run Typescript Compiler from the command line, but we don't do that. So how do we transpile our code? How do we do this in our application? Who remembers? How do we transpile our code? Just a second, let me close the door. So who remembers? Type in.
System.js does that?
Excuse me?
System.js?
System.js, correct. System.js. So System.js is the guy who will load the files and transpile them on the fly. All right. Now, where is the System.js configured? You could have done it right in the index HTML. So what do we see? I see system import here, but I don't see system config. The configuration is not here. On the other hand, I see config.js, which I'm loading, right? So this is a little file where we configure System.js, how to, the option for loading and the option for finding stuff and the option for transpiling stuff. So what do we have in this config? So what do we say? The base URL slash, I want to use transpiler TypeScript. System.js was not created only for TypeScript. It could have used Tresor or Babel. Now, we are saying some TypeScript options over here. These TypeScript options are the same as you could have put in here in the tsconfig. We keep this file here, but technically I don't even know why we should have it here. Probably we can do all the configuration there. Now, packages. We can create mapping. In index.html, when we say import, we could specifically over here say exactly the name and path dot slash. Starting from the current directory, you can find the main TS, which is an entry point to this option. So we could have put it here. In some examples, I believe tomorrow, I'm using direct reference of the main TS. But in this case, it says simply import something known as app. So how System.js would know that there is something that is named app? Again, in config.js, we tell System.js, we say, I want to define something called app. So it's a package app. I want to define such a package. And this app, this package, the main file, the main script in this package is sitting in the main.ts. Default extension is ts if you don't specify the extension of the file here. So that's the system configuration part. Done. Index.html. So index.html in this case, it loads all dependencies from the folder node modules that you install using npm install. All Angular dependencies are here. Now this guy is Twitter Bootstrap, and this guy is jQuery. So we load also these two. So that's about it. By the way, Bootstrap needs this CSS this library, Bootstrap. So we add this link. So this is how to start the application. Now let's go deeper. Let's go deeper. APP. APP is right there. What is the structure? What is the structure of this folder? Main entry point. Main entry point. Let's open it up. This file is doing nothing but the bootstrap, but load the main component in the application. Technically, we could add this bootstrap in the application component itself. Over here we have this application component, which looks like this, and at the end it doesn't have any bootstrap. We could have added bootstrap here at the end and make this one a main class, main entry point. Why we keep it in a separate file? Because we assume that we may decide in the future, we may decide to create different versions of the application. For example, some application is using HTML as a markup. Maybe later on, Angular works with another team, Telerik, working on native script support, so it would be rendering on using native script in mobile devices. So to have this flexibility, the bootstrap of the application we keep in a separate file. Should we decide to load a different version of the application, we would have changed this line here. We are not changing anything now, but I'm just explaining you the idea. Do you have questions so far? You can either use the mic or you can use the chat. No questions. Very good. Somebody has a question? No. Okay, application TS. So what do we have in here? In the application, we have a class, application component. Why we export this class? We export it because we use it somewhere else. Where? Here. If I wouldn't be using export over there, my main TS wouldn't even see it. The application has a constructor. In this application class, we define array product, and we want to use it. We want to use some service, product service, to populate this array product. First of all, let's see what are these guys. Actually, let me go one step up. We split the application by components and services. Services are the classes that don't have any UI. They apply some business logic. Maybe they calculate something, make server requests, and return data, basically. So in our case, product services that we are using in the application are sitting under the folder services in the class product services. Components is a folder with all UI, application, carousel, footer, navbar, and so on. Now, what is the services? Services is a bunch of classes. First of all, it's a product service, the class that can give us data. And we export it to be able to use it from different scripts. In this case, we hard-coded all the data for our sample application. As you can see, we created an array product with a bunch of hard-coded data there. Nothing else. So no HTTP requests are made. The service would be returning this array. In which form? We have a class product that we want to return. Say, for example, we return an array of product descriptions. Every element in this array, we want to have a type product. We define the class there. Where do we use it? In this code, as you see, in this code, I have a method, one method, get product. So what do? I'm using this lambda expression. I'm saying, I want to create a new, I have an array of products. I don't want to return it as JSON. I want to turn it into an array of specific type, into an array that contains instances of this type, right? So what do? I apply the map function to the array. I am saying for each element, lambda expression, when you do map will get every element from the array product. And I say for each element of this of this array, which is JSON, right? I'm saying create a new object of type product and pass every element to it. The object product is defined here. So this is how the get product function would return me not just an array of JSON objects, but an array of products. And we specifically say that. What do we call this feature? Who remembers? How do we call this in TypeScript? When you specify array and something in angle brackets. So what is that?
Generics.
Generic, excellent, right. So if I would try to, over here, create an instance of the class person, Typescript Compiler will give me an error. JavaScript would not give me an error during compile time, right? JavaScript would allow me to create instances of person here, but then during the runtime my code would fail. With TypeScript, I am protected with generics. Cool. So the product service will return as the hard-coded product. Back to the application. So how our application knows all the code and all the dependencies. So to finish up with the product service, let's open up the import section and let's take a closer look. The import section. Let's start with line number 8, since we were talking about the product service. In this application, which invokes product service and get back an array of products, we need to know what are these types, product and what is the product service. That's why we import them. Product and product service that were exported in here. Product was exported, product service was exported. That's why we are importing them here. We specify from where. If you remember in System.js, we said the default extension is TS in System.js configuration in here. Default extension. So when the System.js will start loading stuff, it'll say, oh, they want to import something, a product and product service from this place. So they will find the product service.ts. What else we need in this application? We need a whole bunch of other components. The first line actually here is the core components from Angularjs itself, from the library. Whenever you have a component, you will see this line. Who can tell me now where this script find the definition of this component? Where is this guy sitting? Tell me. Why the product array was defined with a var, not with let? Because we are writing dirty code. And obviously we should be doing this with let. Agree. var is not a mistake. You can say, why aren't you using the latest and greatest features of the language? Yeah, it's a valid point. Correct. So Angular core would be found in the node modules. In the node modules, okay. I think we need to mention one more thing, right? Module resolution in the file tsconfig. Tsconfig. We said that the module resolution is we should use CommonJS standard for module resolution. It's not a standard, it's a spec. CommonJS says, in particular, if you can't find stuff right here, check the node modules. All right, so it'll find the implementation of the Angular core components, and then we import a whole bunch of different components from specified locations. All of them are here. This is our stuff. We wrote it. Oh, I see, Anton tells me that the code is fine. Anton tells me that it's defined in the code, later in the code, so we need it hoisted. All right, let's take a look what Anton tells about. Anton says that we define var, which is used later in the code as a product, not later, but earlier in the code, he wanted to say. Look at this. In line number 14, we use product, but the definition of the product is actually line number 18. JavaScript does something that is called hoisting, variable declaration hoisting. So if the variable is declared anywhere, its declaration will be moved up to the top of the screen. This is called hoisting. And that's the only reason why, in this case, line number 14 doesn't complain. How do you use a variable which was not defined yet? So, again, to answer Anton, I can say we have a choice. Either move this declaration up, or with hoisting it also will work. Okay, so Anton, see, this is a good hint, and maybe we should a little refactor this code. This is beautiful working code, but we still can make it better. All right, so we are done, I guess, with this. Now, the application component. What do we say here? How do we define this component? First of all, it's a class, of course, but it is annotated with the section with annotation component, annotation or decorator, as they call it in TypeScript. So what do we see here? We are saying that if anybody wants to use this application as a tag, as this component, use this tag. All right. Okay. Let's take a look at the index HTML. What do we see? In line, in line number 18, we do use it with this name that was specified as a selector for the application component over here. Over here, not that one, as a tag. Now, what is an HTML? Where is HTML for this component? It's here, in application.html, right there. So technically, our component consists of navbar, auction search. In this div, we have the carousel, this big one on top. In this div, we have a for loop to render auction product item component. By looking at this code, I have no idea what it is. I would need to find it somewhere. And render the array of the products. How many? As many as we defined in the product array. Remember that hard-coded one. What else do we see kind of unusual here? Let me make a little bit more comments. What do we see? We see classes. Class this, class that. This is CSS. Do we have them defined somewhere? There is an application CSS. In the component, we are using it, right? It's styles URL. But do we have these classes like class and something else in there? Let me go back. Can we find class call MD3? Can we find this class call MD12? Can we find these classes over there? Can we find these classes over there? I don't know. Let's see. Some of them are there. So what do we use here? Carousel holder, carousel control. But I don't see any files that's like a row, any styles like row. I don't see any styles like call MD4, MD9, or whatever. These are the things, the classes like this, are coming from Twitter Bootstrap. In Twitter Bootstrap, they have this, as I told you before, this flexible grid system that divides the screen into 12 invisible columns. So when I see something like this, call MD3, what do I understand? I understand, since I know a little bit of this Twitter Bootstrap, I know. Okay, they said that any screen of any width is 12 columns. I am giving 3 columns out of 12 to this guy, right? So by doing that, technically, I give 25% of the screen to this guy. Why 25? Because 12 divided by 3 is what? Anybody knows? Is 4. So if we would decide to divide the screen into 4 equal sections with equal width, we would have given 3 columns to each section. Hypothetical. We will not be doing this, but let's say. Now, but at least I know that the search area on the left will be always, not always, will be taking 3 columns. Where? What is this magic thing, MD? Medium, I don't remember how they call it, but actually it's about medium devices. There are extra small devices in terms of width, small, medium, large, extra large. You can find all definitions in the tutorial for the flexible grid system for whom? For Bootstrap. MD, if I'm not mistaken, it's either 640 pixels width or 768. I don't remember. Probably 768. Now, over here, I see that, we have call MD9. See total 12. We are giving 3 columns on the left. No, not sorry. Yes, 3 columns on the left to the search and 9 columns to the rest. So we have 12 columns, 3 and 9 on screens which are MD. If we don't specify this, it'll work a little bit differently. It'll try to accommodate, it'll try to take the entire space for this component if the device is small. Now, what about this carousel? We are saying on MD devices, carousel should take the whole top. I believe that the MD is still 768. Anton, do you remember? I believe MD is for 760. So if you're on tablet in the portrait mode, the carousel would take 12. Now, what else we see here? Products, again, see this? In this case, we are saying we will be showing the products, these small boxes, remember? Small boxes. Let me start this application. Do I have it running anywhere? No. Let me start it real quick so you will see what I'm talking about. I will be starting it using npm start. It'll start the live server and it'll bring up the application. Here it is. So 3 invisible columns go here, 9 columns width goes here, and over there, we want to split this area, this div, into 3 equal sections, right? Total, again, every div, consider that your div has also is split by 12 into 12 invisible vertical columns, right? So if you want to divide it by 3, so each of these guys will get 4 columns, right? 4 invisible columns in terms of style. And this is exactly what you see. You're seeing on small device, which is, I believe, a 640 width, on large devices, and on medium-sized devices, I want to give four invisible columns to what? To this guy. That's why you see 3 of them. Only 3 of them can fit here. Why? Because we have total 12 invisible columns, and we give 4, 4, and 4 to each of them. When there is no more room left, it'll go to the next row, and again, it'll give 4, 4, 4. By the way, let me do this. I will try to make the screen smaller. I will take this corner of the window and start making this small. Look. Oops, it's automatically change the layout, right? So I don't think I have it installed. You can install, I will need to install it, the sizer extension for the Chrome, and it will show me the size. I keep moving, see? I went through another breakpoint in terms of media queries, and my screen is smaller, so now it shows me different, right? So this is what I mean by responsive design. So our application is already responsive. It will look nice on different devices. Any questions? Any questions? No questions. If you don't have questions, guys, put your microphone on mute so you don't hear the noise. Somebody has it unmuted still. All right, so you understand the drill. What else? Coming back to the product service, what do we have here? We said in the beginning, in the constructor of the application component, we said, you guys will be using product service. But where do I create an instance of the product service? Remember, product service is nothing else but a class. It's a class. Where do I instantiate this class so I can have a right to call getProduct? I do not instantiate it. Not tomorrow, but the week after tomorrow, we'll be talking about dependency injection. And this is exactly what is happening here. Just the fact that you defined the product service type as an argument of the constructor, and no, not and. It'll tell Angular, ooh, they want to inject into this class an instance of product service. They want to create it and inject it. Then Angular will say, how am I supposed to create it? Do I know how to create this class? And just the fact that we specified the section providers here tells Angular how to create this class. In this particular case, short notation means just create an instance of it. I will not go into detail because we'll cover it in details in a week when we will talk about dependency injection. But for now, just know that this is how the magic happens. Also, the fact that I declared it private will even create an instance variable over here of type product service. Then we call this product service and we assign the result to the array products. The rest is done in HTML as I showed you before. Using the ng4, it loops through the array and so on. So that's the application. That's the application component. Let's try another one. We will not be covering all of them, but let's pick something else. What do we want to pick? Do we want to pick? I don't know what. Let's take this one, auction product. The one, actually let's take, auction product. The one that shows these 3 features products at the bottom. Where is that? Auction product item. Let's see, how can I find it? It's, let's go to TS, product item. Apparently it's here. So it's where, so we need to go one level up. Why did I do, see in this case I did relative. Also not clean code, guys. Anton, take a look at this. On this line I do one directory up. And this line I do from the root and so on. We need to fix that as well. Product item component under product item. Product item is here. Product item is here. So what do we have in the product item component? Let's take a look at the screen real quick. That's the guy we are talking about, one of these. So the guy has some description, a little placeholder for a small image, title of the product, description, and price. And it has these stars that represent rating. Rating is implemented as a separate component called stars component. So now we have a parent product item, and it uses the stars component. Let's look at the code. What do we see here? We are saying that we will need core, of course. What do we need core for? We are using component, and we're using something called input. We will be talking tomorrow about communication between components. The parent guy, this one, is this one, will have an input property product. And this input property, it'll get data from somewhere else. So that's why we use it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. So we use import from core, we added it here. Now we want to use stars component, as I told you, to display stars. It's sitting there. And we will use product class to extract the product description, right? Remember the product service, it has hard-coded description, so we need it here. Also, if you are using some other components from your application, you need to list them as directives. There is a section directives in the component. You're saying, I'm going to use stars component. Where do I get it from? I specified it here in the import statement. Where's the template URL for this class? We keep it here in the product item HTML. What is a selector? Again, what is a selector? It means how it'll be seeing in HTML. This is the name we gave. Let's go back to the application HTML. See this guy? That's the one. Our product item component, right there. Sorry, here. What else? Let's take a look at HTML itself for the product item component. It's right there. What do we do here? What do we want to display? Again, this is what you see here. This is a rendering piece that you see here. What do we say? It's a div. On top, I want to have an image, which is a placeholder for the image, this gray rectangle of the size 320 by 150. What else? I want to display, now over here I'm using binding, right? Binding is also known as interpolation. Internally, if you would be reading the tutorial on ECMAScript 6, you will see that I implemented string interpolation. They use a bit different syntax, but this is what internally Angular uses. We can say that we are binding a price property of a product, or we want to insert it into this string, the string of type header 4. So internally, Angular does string interpolation. It'll find it and it'll bind the product price. On top, we want to display it again as h4, as a link actually. Over here, we even want to have it as a link, which is not working at this point. In the next week, it is going to work. Product title, underneath we display product description. All of this is taken from the object product. The object product is here. Where do we get it from? It'll be given to us somehow through the input parameter, and we'll talk about input parameters tomorrow. Coming back. So we display price, title, and description. What else we need? Under this guy, we also say we also want to display rating. What is rating? Oh, it's something called auction stars. Do you know what is auction stars? Let's go back. We have imported stars component. What is the stars component? What is this? This star component is here. By the way, I hit Command click. So this ID is smart enough to understand. Again, I was here. On Mac you have Command. On Windows the controls would work as well. I hit Command down and I click on stars, and it opens the stars component. So what do we have? It's a stars component. I will not go through detail, but the important part is it is known as auction stars. Selector is auction stars. What is auction stars? What is that? It's a selector for it to be used in HTML, and we are using it in HTML. Product item HTML uses it here. What is this rating? In square brackets. If you remember from the last lesson, was it in the last lesson or it'll be tomorrow? I have no idea. Anyway, I'm telling you that square bracket mean property binding. We are binding a property of the auction stars component to we are binding a value product rating, which we'll get in the product class. We are binding it to a property rating, and through this binding, because it was defined inside of the auction star component as input, it'll jump right in. So auction star will have it. We'll know that we have 4 stars or 3 stars or 2 or whatever. Let's go back again. Product service. Product. Every product has price, title, descriptions, something else, categories, but binding a rating as well. So this rating is coming from here. And this product has another rating and so on. I don't see any two-way bindings, guys. Where do you see two-way bindings? Where? Explain me where. It's one-way binding. One-way binding. We are binding from this value to here. So we are giving in one direction. Why class star rating is defined in star TS and not TSS? I'm not sure I understand the question. What do you want to say? What do you want to say? Star TS has some code, you know. It has some business logic. There is CSS that is using some stars. It could be empty stars, it could be filled stars. It is using CSS internally, but it also has some business logic. See, it does stuff. Well, Dmitro, you give me a very simple case, right? You're saying this? Still, I don't understand. Our component is more than just the style. It needs to have some logic in there. So that's why we use it. So let's move on. We have like 10 minutes left. Do you guys have questions? If you have questions, we can stop and ask questions. By the way, Anton, do you think I didn't cover something? If you want to speak up, Anton, do you want to say something? It's optional. Anyone else wants to say something?
Yes. On the previous HTML where you were including product items.
Which one was it?
The product item HTML.
This one? No, this is application.
No, the product item HTML.
Right. So what's the question? I click on it and show me the component.
It's not that component.
Which one you want me to open?
Remember where you are referring stars?
Oh, this one. This one is using stars.
It's HTML.
This is HTML, correct.
Yeah. So when do we actually use this double quotes as a value versus the bindings with double curly braces?
Oh, in this particular case, this is just string interpolation. We could take any string, any value, and use it as a part of a string. In this particular case, we have a DOM object of type H4. It may have tags, it may have links, and inside we decided to use interpolation. Over here, we are binding to a property of the component. When the DOM object will be creating it, when the browser will be creating a DOM object for this guy, it will know that it has property, DOM object property rating. So in this case, we do property binding to a property. In this case, it's also binding, but internally, they see that you have a string in your HTML. Inside string, you want to put a bunch of different values. So in those cases, we are using the string interpolation and curly braces. If we have a component with defined property, in this case, it's a custom property defined in here. In particular, where is this auction starts? In particular, where was it? Not here, sorry, here. In particular, this thing is a property. If you define a property on the component and marked it as an input or output, we have a property on the component. If it's a property of the component, you use square brackets. If you want to bind to a property.
And you hand over a value with double quotes?
The double quotes you use double curly braces, you mean. You use whenever you want to bind anything you want.
The double quotes next to this rating.
This thing is a value.
Yeah, could we use like double curly braces here?
No. This is a value. It's basically a standard syntax of HTML. You have a property equals something. Say the property would be hidden, or the property would be value or placeholder in regular HTML.
Is it something like you are passing reference here, and in the upper double curly braces you are actually getting the value out?
No, it's the same thing. In both cases, I'm passing the reference, but in this case, I am saying I want this be a part of the string. I could have any other text here, right? And also, I have this, correct? So in both cases, I am taking the reference to a particular value in an object known as product. We should have an object known as product in memory. But in this case, I am inserting the value as a part of some string, any arbitrary string. Okay. In this case, I am assigning it to a property of the component. That's the difference. That's all. But internally, the mechanism is the same. They need to find what is the product. They need to find if they have a property description or rating here. And then they need to bring it up. How? It depends. If this is a property, use square brackets. If this is a part of a string, use curly braces, double curly braces.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No more questions. We are coming to an end of our session then. By the way, the quality of video is much better than in previous Adobe software. All right, thank you for the feedback, because we decided to switch. We have different screen sharing software. In the last session, we've been using Adobe Connect. Starting from now, we are switching to GoToMeeting. And this URL that you've been using today, we'll keep using for every session. We'll try to reuse the same URL, which ends with Angular 2. We will be using for every session. So I will still send you an email saying that this is a session from now on. Maybe somebody didn't come to this consultation. But after that, I will not be even sending this URL. We'll keep using it because we also like it better. Oleg, I'm getting errors in console from every HTML. Failed to inject refresh script. Couldn't find any of the tag. Couldn't find any of it. I don't understand what is that. It has nothing to do the body SVG. Can you show us the screen? Or you, if I can make a presenter. Do you want to show the screen? Or actually, right, post it on forum and maybe attach the code that you have. But it's definitely not something that is Angular related. Antonio got a question, I believe. Can you send me a link to the session to rewatch? Of course, I will send the link of this recording to everybody, to the group now. I mean, in 10-15 minutes. Any other questions? Oh, you need to send a question to the forum, and it would be helpful if you will attach the script or publish it somewhere and attach a link. Because these are some weird. You shouldn't be getting these errors. Is it correct to say we use brackets when assigning a value to an HTML element attribute? Yes and no. There is a fine line. I don't know if you're touching a fine area, and we described it in chapter 3, I believe. What is the difference between HTML attributes and HTML and DOM properties? The thing is that when you create an HTML, when a browser sees an HTML tag, like this, for example, image, it uses this HTML in the beginning initially. For what? Just to build a DOM object. DOM object that it's going to build is representing IMG. When you look at HTML, you can say that this is an attribute of this guy. But when the browser actually builds a DOM object, this becomes a property of the DOM object. So you are asking a question about the brackets. The brackets can be used in two cases. In 99% of the cases, it will be represented. You will use it to represent DOM object property. Because when the DOM is built, HTML language is not that important. But there is a way to use binding if you really want to change the value of the HTML attributes. In that case, if this would be the case, you would be using @rating if there would be such an HTML attribute. We added it as a description, I believe, in chapter 3. We discussed it. We created two diagrams, the difference between property, DOM object property, and binding to properties and binding to attributes. We keep it there. One of the tech editors said it's confusing. We tried to make it simpler. We considered to remove it to avoid confusion, and you are pointing right there, Charles. Please don't do this to us. I mean, we can spend like 20 minutes just explaining the difference, or get the book and we describe it there until we just remove it from the book to avoid confusion. Okie dokie, guys. If there is no more questions, this session is over, and I'll send you the recording. Tomorrow at 9, please reuse the same URL as today. Thank you very much for coming.